Good evening, everyone. Guys, we're going to be discussing Ukraine at the moment. Well, what's happening at the moment. In my previous videos, I've mentioned why the Russian infantry, Soviet Russian infantry, will never be able to take on a Western infantry man for man. What I'm going to do in this video, I'm going to talk about what's been happening in Ukraine and how this is an absolute humiliation for Vladimir Putin's Russia. And also, I'm going to give you guys some of the nuts and bolts and analysis of how the Russians train, how the Russians deploy, the mentality. And then I'm going to contrast that with how a Western military trains, how a Western military, deploys and their mentality. And once you put these two together, you'll see, there really is no other outcome but, the Western infantry winning. Now, obviously, as I've said in my previous videos, with these inevitabilities, what this leads to is the greater risk that Putin will use a nuclear weapon. Now, from my video earlier, we talked about the use of how did they put it, escalate to de-escalate, in the context that Putin may use a nuclear weapon, a low-yield one, to say, right, guys, I'm going to pull the pins here if we don't sort something out. So that's the reality of the situation at the moment. Let me just quickly, where are we? I want to share this with you a second, guys. Hang on. Well, I'm going to do it. I forgot. Here we are. So we've got this here, and I'll put this in the I'll put the link to this in the description. But as you can see there, Ukraine-Russia war latest. Russian strikes deserve fair response, says Zelensky, as Ukrainian troops reportedly enter another Russian region. So you've got the Ukrainians pushing forwards, and then we've got some pictures there, guys. I just want to go through them with you. So in pictures, Ukrainian troops ride armoured vehicles in border regions. Ukrainian troops have been seen riding armoured vehicles near the Russian border. Photo taken by Reuters show a number of troops operating in the city of Sumy, the area used to launch Ukraine's surprise invasion of the Kursk region. Now, let's just look at these guys, okay? If you look at them, they're covered in blue tape. Now, for those of you guys who don't know, the reason they had to put this blue tape on the reason they had to put this blue tape on is because they kept having friendly fire incidents. So they all put the same tape on. So obviously that day it's blue, and then another day they might change it to yellow or something. Now, guys, you can say what you want. Is it effective? Do we think the enemy could get, their intelligence service may be able to penetrate deep in Ukrainian lines and get some blue tape? Of course they could. So I don't even know how this is working, but apparently it is working. They change the tape on their helmets, on their arms every couple of days, and obviously before they go into a battle, they've all got the same tape in the same places. So obviously that's friendly forces identification. Huge effecting on camouflage and concealment, but guys, that it is what it is. Who am I to tell anybody how to fight a war? So the next picture, we've got somebody repairing something. It looks like, do you know what, guys? I have no idea what that is. It looks like a mount for something. Again, I have no idea. There it is again. It looks like some sort of anti-tank system. I don't know. But, it's being repaired. We've got that looks like a Humvee. Is that a Humvee? You guys, American buffs, I'm pretty much guaranteeing that's well. I'm pretty much convinced that's a Humvee. So we've got some spares and repairs training on a Humvee. That is, guys, I'm ex-infantry. I have no idea what that is. To me, that's a tank. Yeah, I've got a little snowball here, so there's people being shooting at them. So yeah, so just a few pictures I wanted to talk, go through. Now, the reason, let me get back on here. Yeah, so let's talk about why the Russian infantry can't and never will be able to defeat a Western infantry. It comes down to training and mentality. Now, we'll go with the Russian side first. You hear the Russians, and you no doubt you've seen these, these Russian propaganda videos online where there's people, you know, there's people running and they do a cartwheel or a somersault and pick an axe up off the ground and throw the axe behind them while they're in the air, and then it hits the target, and then you're like, wow, look at these guys are insane. No, that's not how it works. You know, these guys need to be able to hit a target consistently at 300 meters. That's what they should be concentrating on, not these circus, you know, not these circus acts, which is what they are. So these videos that are all over online, you know, you literally get a couple of people in that unit who are normally Cossacks, and these guys are really agile. They love jumping around, they love dancing, they love doing all that crazy stuff, you know. But the rest of the unit are not like that. So what happens is you turn up for some training, they film this guy, everybody else sits around, and then they all say, "That was good, wasn't it?" And they all say, dark on the earth, or whatever they say. And then they all go home and think they've done some training. No, that's not how you do training. The Russians have this mentality of, you know, death or glory, we will never surrender. We will always fight these communists, these capitalist pigs. So that's really good. And it sounds absolutely awesome on paper. When you hear that, you're like, wow, you know, these guys are going to come out, and when they start fighting, they're either all going to, you know, they're either all going to, you know, be unalive, or they're going to win. They're unstoppable. They're not, we can't beat them. They're, you know, we can't do anything about it. No. The reality of the situation is, when you have that work environment, and when you have your commanding officers, or whatever they're, or however it works, yeah, it is officers. When you have your commanding officers, if they send you out and they say, right, you either win, or if you come back, it's a disgrace and there'll be punishment. Guess what happens? Your soldiers don't want to go out. They're like, okay, I've got a wife, I've got kids, you know, I want to get home on leave. I want, you know, I've got a life. I don't want to be going out there risking everything. And if I fail, I come back and I'm punished. So I'm just not going to go out. I'm not going to bother. If I don't go out and don't try, then I can't fail. I won't be punished. So that's what happens, guys. All right. That is the reality of the situation. You know, this, you know, we will never surrender, all that sort of stuff. That's what, you know, the reality of the situation. Most of the time, that's what happens. You know, people just sit in these forward operating bases, and it's a huge artillery fight with, you know, weapons that are fought long distance away, and people can't even see each other. Yes, I know now there's been an added, there's an added dimension at the moment with the use of these FPV smaller drones, but on a whole, the mentality is the same with the, you know, you can just use these FPV drones as an extension of the artillery. So that's what the, you know, that's the Russian mentality, I guess. Now, if you look at the Western mentality, you know, the Western training and the Western ethos. So if you're in a Western military, you would be given, you know, first of all, you have a rank structure, and you have you have an orders process. You have, what's the word I'm looking for? Operational planning. You have lots of checks and balances and regulations that go in there. So what that does, that empowers your younger soldiers, for example, a lance corporal, a corporal, you know, to take out a patrol and to potentially go and try and do a mission. And if it fails and he's stuck to, you know, and he's done everything right, he comes back. He doesn't, you know, there's nothing. It's a good mission. If you came back and you did everything right, that's a good mission. So the two systems, one of them on paper sounds really, really good, which is the Russian one. It sounds like it's almost undefeatable, you know. But the reality is, all they do is sit in the barracks and don't do anything. Whereas the Western infantry, they'll be out fighting, they'll be looking for things, they'll be pushing, they'll be moving. Another one of the things that I was really shocked with when I started to understand how this thing works, in the Russian military, the commander of a small unit will stay at the rear, because he will say, oh, I am the man with all the experience. I need to be at the back so I can control the battlefield. That's not how it works, all right? It's not how it works. You need to lead from the front. It's not a trick question. You can't lead from the back. It's impossible. You're the one with all the experience, so you should be up front so you can see what's in front. If you try and, you know, if you're sat at the back trying to lead from the rear, by the time you ask what's happening, by the time that message has got back to you and you don't understand it, then you have to send the message forwards again and ask him what he really means. And then it comes back and you're still not 100%. So you're working on Chinese whispers at best. You can't formulate a plan. You can't do a battle analysis. If you lead from the front, you're up there with all the experience. You don't need to ask what's happening because you can see it yourself. And that's another system, you know, another way that the Western military infantry is far superior. Anyway, guys, I've kept that relatively short on the, you know, on the two ways. If you want me to, you know, really break it down and go with kit and equipment, how they fare against each other on an infantry level, you know, I can put that together, you know. But, you know, the reality is, the kit and equipment isn't that much different. Yes, of course it is. And I know what people that, you know, I know there's going to be a load of people coming up here and saying, oh, yeah, but, you know, we are, you know, the Americans have a so-and-so site and these have this type of site. Yeah, okay, that's fine. But trust me, when you're fighting in these built-up areas and your, you know, your range in these towns and cities, when your range is like, a lot of the time it's less than 50 meters. It doesn't matter what type of weapon system you've got, as long as it goes bang and something comes out at the end. You know, so a lot of these advantages are kind of compressed when we're talking about, you know, when we're looking at the operational environment. Anyway, so that's kind of those two things in a nutshell, guys. And that is it. I'm gonna leave you there, guys. I hope I've given you some things to think about when you're looking at these considerations. And like I said in my other videos, you know, Putin knows this. You know, Putin's generals, they know that that their infantry can't beat Western infantry. They know this. They're not stupid. So they don't try, and that's why, and that is literally, sorry, and I guess that's another reason why you see them not training and just pumping manpower and manpower and manpower, because for the Russians to get their military up to the, you know, up to the state of a Western military, it would take 50 years if they tried now, because you'd have to train, retrain all the people from the bottom. And then you would have to promote all those people up to the top till they're colonels or generals or whatever, so they understand how everything works below them. If you just give, you know, if you just start training and give the Russians, like, for example, if, you know, if they give, I don't know, if somebody gave Russia now a battalion of the very best Western infantry, they wouldn't know how to use them. You know, you'd still have the general at the top who hasn't got experience working at that level. So the whole thing takes time. You know, it takes time, it takes training, it takes resources, it takes money, you know, and that's why, you know, it's never going to work. But like I said before in my other videos, you know, Putin knows that they can't win. And they know that potentially, like, you know, I've seen, and it's unconfirmed reports, that there are British and American accents now in those regions. So they must know that they can't fight these guys one-on-one with infantry. So for Putin now, he's got the choice. Does he start using his own artillery on his own villages? Can you imagine the PR that that's going to cause in Russia? Or does he go with the nuclear option, you know, using a low-yield tactical nuclear weapon? I think this is, you know, I'm surprised this has not happened already. But, you know, reasons I'll click in one of these videos at the end of this. I'll put the videos at the end of this video, what I was talking about this when I talk about the Russian nuclear doctrine. Anyway, guys, like I said, I'm going to go now. Let me know if you want more on the Russian infantry and how it stacks up to NATO infantry. I'm going to back to grid.